Today I have Welcome everyone. This is Kenzo Adolfa with an interesting video. I'm gonna see if I can help MatPat out with his latest theory. I don't know if he ever got my comments on the video because my when I would send him, my phone said it would be sent, but I didn't see him on there in the comment section, and usually it shows up right away. So I happen to have Five Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes, where it actually mentions who Golden Freddy is. And I know the books aren't canon, and I got 2 out of 3, which I found out today that there's 3. But if MatPat's theory is correct that the lone I'm gonna go ahead and turn this down some. But the lone grave on the top of the hill is Charlie/Charlotte, who happens to be from the Silver Eyes/Twisted Ones. Then I think I know who Golden Freddy is. I'm also going to be playing Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and I'm going to be cheating my butt off only because I want to focus on my theory about who he is other than the actual gameplay. Maybe sometime I'll make a video of me actually playing the game without cheats, but let's go. Let me just go ahead and close the door since I don't have to worry about anything. Alright, so MatPat's theory.
Hello. I wanted to record a message for you to help you get settled in on your first night. I actually worked in that office before you.
So Matt's theory about
I know it can be a bit overwhelming, but
Golden Freddy is sound, but I think he might be off one letter anyways. He says there's 6 letters in the name, but the book, The Silver Eyes, happens to mention the name a lot, especially in chapter, let's see if I can find it.
What you doing?
Video. Maybe you can help me out with it. I'm trying to help MatPat with his latest theory. And I think this book, especially if what he said in the video about I don't know if you've seen it, but he said there's a lone grave watching 5 other graves, and he believes that the 4 graves that you can see is the true names of the children who died that possessed the animatronics. And he believes the lone grave is Charlotte, or Charlie's grave, who happens to be mentioned in here, who is William Afton's daughter. And if he's correct on that, I think I know who Golden Freddy is in his theory. I just need to find out what chapter it is, because one of the chapters, one of the characters gets kidnapped by pretty much purple guy, and he's left in the room with the Golden Freddy suit, and he calls Golden Freddy by name, which is Michael, and according to MatPat, the name of Golden Freddy is 6 letters long. But what if he's off by just 1 letter? What if instead of 6 letters, he's looking for 7? Because Michael's name is 7 letters long.
Where did he get the idea that there were 6 letters in Golden Freddy's name?
Watch the theory. He goes through all of it. There's 4 technically books that Scott Kaufman made, which this one, the Twisted Ones, a 3rd one within this novel, and one that he disguises as a children's workbook. And he figured there's 6 letters because there's several hints of a numeric algorithm of letters, and you know the whole letters go for each number thing of the alphabet. And he tried doing the math and he came up with 6 numbers. So he thinks that there's 6 letters. Yet this book, near the end, tells you who Golden Freddy is, because they mention him by name, and Michael just happens to be 7 letters and not 6 letters. So, and I plan to send this to MatPat, hopefully by, making a link and sending the link in his, putting the link in one of the comments of his latest video, so hopefully he'll look for it. Let me go ahead and re-shut my doors, because I'm cheating my ass off right now. So, if I could remember what chapter it is. Let's see.
Congrats. I won't talk quite as long this time since Freddy and his friends tend to become more active as the week progresses.
Okay, what chapter is this one? Does it say? Let's see. It's a table of contents. When did I see?
I've heard he becomes a lot more active in the dark, though. So, hey, I guess that's one more reason not to run out of power, right? I also want to emphasize the importance of using your door lights. There are blind spots in your camera view, and those blind spots have to be right outside.
See the Silver Eyes.
If you can't find something,
if you purchased, all rights reserved, blah blah blah.
You might only have a few seconds to react.
TV static, it goes directly to chapter 1.
I'm not implying that.
So there's no table of contents.
Check on the curtain in Pirate Cove from time to time. The character in there seems unique in that
See, chapter 4, that's not it, it's near the end of the book, or at least the middle of it.
He doesn't like being watched. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure you have everything under control. Talk to you soon.
See, chapter 6. How many chapters is in this book? 7. See, they made their way back through. I doubt that's it. See, Charlie. Someone was. Yeah, you go ahead and look for your pizza, Chica. Let's see, chapter 9. See, I think we're getting close. Calvin, let's see. Carlton opened his eyes.
I think there's like 12 or 13 chapters in the book.
Okay, I'm on chapter 9. Let's see.
There's 13 at the most.
Despite his head's stuffed right with...
So tight with a massive pulsing egg.
Okay, we are definitely getting close.
He was half sitting, stiffly propped against the wall, and he found he could not move his arms. His body was covered in little random places of sharp pain and tingling weakness. Yeah.
We need to go through this or maybe even the next chapter, because it mentions that...
It's somewhere in this chapter or the next one.
Yeah. Let's see. He heard trying to clear it and yelled, "Oh no!" Let's see. Get a little bit closer to the light. Okay, his eyes. Still and closed his eyes. Eventually he did. See, where is it?
Most people don't last this long. I mean, you know, they usually move on to other things by now. I'm not implying that they died. That's not what I meant. Anyway, I better not take up too much of your time. Things are getting real tonight.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's it. Let's see. Let's see. Let's back up a little bit. His arms were trapped within the suit. Let's see. Unusual position. Legs stuck on. Legs stuck out. Bottom looking small and thin. And let's see. Massive torso. Sweater blood. Okay, let's see. Something was pressing into. That's not it yet. Might once have been bright blue, but was now only a bluish few feet away, sitting on a cardboard box and with a flicker of, he looked at it, but he looked at it, 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 but he could not tell what it was supposed to be. It looked as if someone had been told make an animal. Maybe I just need to find the name. He looked around, trying to assess calmly. Let's see. The still sweat of costing. No. Yeah, laugh your head off, Freddy. I don't care. Oh, I think we're still...
No, this is the scene you're thinking of.
This is?
Yes, but it's not Golden Freddy he was speaking to, it was Springtrap.
No. After Springtrap leaves, he finds the Golden Freddy suit. As if... And
but he just referred to Springtrap as Mike.
You sure it was Springtrap he referred as Michael?
Mm-hmm. A yellow rabbit poked its head around the corner, its ears tilting at a jaunty angle. And then after a little bit later, talks about never trust a rabbit. This is what happened to Michael. You are what happened to Michael.
Yeah, that he mentions Michael, but he's not saying that Springtrap is Michael. Let's see. We need to get to where Springtrap leaves. Because if we can find where Springtrap leaves...
Here, let me see it. Because I can skim through it pretty fast.
If we can find where Springtrap leaves, then he notices Golden Freddy slumped down onto the floor, and he starts hearing a voice, and he calls... He pretty much calls Freddy by Michael's name. Like, he's like, I know that's you. Yeah, we're on that floor. We're still good.
See, now it's just stop talking about animatronics altogether.
Gonna see if I can find something. Is there a way to pause this? Okay, let's see. Audible. Library. Freddy.
This is Audible.
Huh.
I told you there were 13 chapters.
Chapter 12. They all stood staring at the man on the floor. Jessica took an involuntary step backward. Charlie was glued to this chapter 11. They sat silently for a few minutes in the little office. Chapter 10. The screens all lost their pictures and flipped to static. Hey! Marla cried. Chapter 12. Chapter 13. The sun was rising as they emerged into the open air. Clay put his arm around Carlton's shoulder, and for once Carlton didn't brush him away with a joke.
Okay.
Chapter 3. Chapter 4. Charlie and John were the last ones. Chapter 5. Chapter 8. Charlie! Someone was at the door. Chapter 9. Carlton opened his eyes, disoriented, his head stuffed tight with a massive, pulsing ache. He was half sitting, stiffly propped against a wall, and he found he could not move his arms. His body was covered in little, random places of sharp pain and tingling numbness. He tried to shift away from the discomfort, but he was restrained somehow, and the little moves he could make just made new places hurt. He looked around the room, trying to get his bearings. It was punctured. The suit will grow wet with your blood, and you will know you're dying for long, lacking even the echo of bravado. Dave did not seem to hear him. A surge of pain in his head. I wouldn't do that. A rasp was in place.
I don't see it anywhere.
She was pointing at the floor. What is it? Charlie asked, coming up next to her. It's Jason's footprint, Marla said.
I don't know.
You can see the imprint.
I can't find it in there. The only thing that I
Marla
can
fiddled
find
with
about
something on
anything
the ceiling
yellow
that the others could not
animatronic is
see,
Springtrap.
making little mutters of frustration. Is it locked? Charlie called up.
Could I be looking at... Hey!
The screens all lost their pictures and flipped to static. Heck! Chapter 10. Chapter 9.
Could I be looking at the
Carlton
wrong
opened
one?
his eyes, disoriented, his head stuffed tight with a
Like just the wrong
pulsing
chapter?
ache. He was half sitting, stiffly propped against a wall, and he found he could not move his arms. His body was covered in little, random places of sharp pain and tingling numbness. He tried to shift away from the discomfort, but he was restrained somehow, and the little moves he could make just made new places hurt. He
I don't
looked
know,
around
even
the
if it is
room,
in there, I
trying
seriously
to get his
doubt
bearings.
that's
It
the
looked
answer
like
that
a
Matt Pat
storage
is looking
room.
for.
There were boxes along the walls.
I
and
honestly
discarded
doubt
cans
that
of
he
paint and
missed
other
that
cleaning
one
supplies
piece of
littered the
thing
floor.
in there, considering
was
he's
more.
read all of the books.
There were piles of furry fabric everywhere. Carlton peered at them sleepily. He felt muzzy, like if he closed his eyes he could just
Because we
fall
already
back
know that
asleep
Michael
so
Afton is
easily.
Springtrap.
Not Michael Afton.
He shook his head hard, trying to clear it, and yelped.
There's
Oh,
another
no.
Michael that was
He groaned
killed
as the throbbing in
within
his
all
head
the
demanded
kids.
attention.
The very
His
funeral
stomach
that they
ached.
went
He clenched
back
his jaw
to
and
town
closed
for.
his eyes, waiting for the pounding and nausea to recede. Eventually they did, fading back to something almost manageable.
I just need to
And
find
he
it.
opened his eyes again, starting over. This time his mind had cleared a little.
I
He
know
looked
that
down
Michael
at his body
Afton
to
is
see his
Springtrap.
restraints.
Michael Afton is Dave.
Oh no. He was wedged inside the heavy, barrel-shaped torso of a mascot costume, the headless top half of some kind of animal. His arms were trapped inside the torso section, pinned to his sides in an unnatural position by some sort of framework. The arms of the costume hung limp and
see.
empty from the sides. His legs stuck out incongruously from the bottom,
Justin.
looking small and thin in
Jessica.
contrast. He could feel other things inside the mascot's torso. Pieces of metal
I
that
need to
pressed against his back
find where
and poked
Charlie
into him.
finds
He could feel raw patches on his skin. And he could
Carlton.
not tell if the thing he felt trickling down his back was sweat
Let's
or
see,
blood.
because I am one
Something
of
was pressing
them.
into the sides of his neck.
Oh, he says
When he
that
turned
after
his
he
head,
says that after
Whatever
they
it
meet.
was dug into his skin.
Let's
The
see.
costume's fur was dirty and matted, a faded color that might once have been a bright blue, but was
He
now
looked-
only a
he looked at
bluish
each of
approximation
them.
of beige. You could
I
see
think
a
it's
head
this
of
one.
the same color
This
a
chapter
few feet
anyways.
away, sitting on a cardboard box,
see.
Michael.
and with a flicker of curiosity, he
Probably.
looked at it, but he could not tell what it was supposed to be. It looked as if someone had been told, "Make an animal," and had done just that.
See,
Careful not
what
to
chapter
make it
is
look
this
like
one?
any
What chapter is
specific
this one?
type of animal. He looked around the room, comprehension dawning. He knew where he was. The piles of fabric had faces.
Silver Eyes.
They were empty costumes.
This
mascots from
one
the restaurant,
is 11.
deflated, collapsed, and staring empty-eyed at him. Chapter 10. Chapter 11. They sat silently for a few minutes in the little office, everyone eyeing the door, waiting. It's just another place to be trapped, Charlie thought. We have to get out of here, Jessica said softly, echoing Charlie's thoughts. Suddenly, Carlton made a small sound of distress. Spasmodically, he grabbed a cardboard box,
Dang it.
tipping it over
No,
to
it's
dump
before
out
that.
some of the contents, and vomited into it. Chapter 11. Chapter 10. The screens all lost their pictures and flipped to static. Hey! Marla cried, and to weep. Though he knew the suit he was wearing was still only what eye sockets were two tiny glints of light, vacant wind. Carefully looking back and forth a little.
No, it is
All
on
there
9.
was. But he kept going. Security camera that perched and made for the control room under the stage, squeezing in and closing themselves in just as the guard appeared in the doorway. Voices. People moving around. Carlton did not allow himself to sigh in relief. A rescue wouldn't do him any good if he got his insides punctured by 100 tiny robot parts first. Instead, he continued with what he had been doing, inching his way across the floor and into the view of the security camera that perched near the ceiling just above the door. Each movement was so scarce it felt like nothing, but he had been doing this for over an hour, and he was almost there. He kept his breathing steady, using his trapped hands to lift his body a tiny bit, move to the side, and let himself down again, just a little farther to the right. His fingers were cramping and his head still ached, but he kept going, relentless. Although he was still afraid, still painfully aware of how easily he could trigger his own death, at some point the fear had dulled, or perhaps he had just become accustomed to it. Panic could not last forever. Eventually, the adrenaline had run out. Now, at least, the need for slow, precise movement took precedence over everything
See, Carlton
else.
looked back. He
That was all
realized
there
that
was.
deep
Carlton made one final
within
movement and stopped, closing his eyes for a moment.
recesses of the costume's
Stop
eyes,
now. The
is
others
that
were here.
two tiny
It had to be
glimmer.
And if he would check the cameras. He stared up into the light,
Glints of
willing
light.
himself to be
He
seen.
just,
He could not wave or jump up and
he
down.
felt just a
He tried
little
rocking back and forth a little. But no
muscle
matter how stiffly he held himself,
switch.
he felt the press of spring locks, ready to give. He bit his lip in frustration.
Not quite
Just see me,
enough
he
to
whispered to no one. But all
get
at
him
once
killed.
he felt as if he had been heard. Felt
See.
the inexplicable sense of someone
as
else's
Carlton
presence
held
in the room.
the
His heart began to race again. The adrenaline that had given out, finding its second
creature's
wind.
gaze, he
Carefully,
felt himself
slowly,
become,
He looked around.
begin to
Until
calm.
something caught his eye. It was only one of the costumes, slumped empty in the shadows, half hidden in the corner of the room. It was motionless, but its face was pointed directly at him, staring.
Let me see it.
As Carlton
I
looked
think I
back,
know where I can find
he
it.
realized that deep within the recesses of the costume's eye sockets were two tiny glints of light.
This is the
He felt
costume I'm
little
talking
muscles
about, and I
twitch,
think this
or
one
a
is Golden
strange shudder
Freddy.
running through his body.
I think
Not
they
quite enough
mentioned
to
that
get
he's
him
Golden
killed.
Freddy after
He did not
Charlie,
look away.
that the costume is Golden
Carlton
Freddy
held the
after
creature's gaze,
Charlie
He felt himself begin
arrives
to calm.
to save him.
His heart's pounding eased,
But
and his breath grew even. It was as though suddenly he was safe. Though he knew the suit he was wearing was still only one flinch, one startled jump from killing him. Carlton kept looking at those 2 pinpoints of light, and as he did, he heard a voice. In a gasping instant, all the air was sucked from his lungs. As the voice spoke, that voice he would have known anywhere, that voice he would have given anything to hear again. Carlton began to weep, using all his will to keep his body from shaking. The eyes in the dark were intent on his face as the voice went on, speaking secrets to Carlton in the ringing silence, telling him things that he dreaded, things that someone had to hear.
Okay, now that
Chapter
is
10.
Mike.
The screens all lost their pictures and flipped to static. Hey, he echoed, looking at Lamar. I can't see anything. He pulled on the door. Lighting had changed. Now a single blinding blue light. All she could see were 1,000 after. Their plastic gazes have been very stupid, and his eyes rolling wildly. She raised her hand to see who was there, but the light blinded her. All she could of black. The metal walls of the stall divider. Dim, it scarcely illuminated her stall. She held her breath. Of the sinks. Apprehensively, she looked back at the door of her stall. Stretching, tearing, and popping. What is that? Charlie dug into the floor with her nails, holding down a gutter. She grabbed the knob and twisted. Thankfully, it fell open easily. She slid through the door, then closed it rapidly. Sorry, I talk when I'm nervous. He clamped down his jaw and bit. I don't think so, but I'll the back of the costume and get you out. But you can't move, Carlton. Trapped, wedged somehow into the top half of one of the animatronic suits, his head poking out from the wide shoulders of the costume. His face was white and exhausted, and Charlie knew why. The spring locks.
What? Let's see. What do you mean it's Michael? And the suit.
Carlton?
Let's see.
Charlie said cautiously.
Charlie said softly as if she might
he said with the same
be talking
tone.
to someone who
that costume is
had gone
mad.
mad.
Thanks.
Let's see.
He wheezed, half attempting a laugh. Charlie forced a smile.
So I'd be willing to bet that
well,
maybe
today is your lucky day. I'm probably the only person who knows how to get you out of that thing alive. Carlton exhaled a long and shaky breath. Lucky me, he said. Charlie knelt at his side, studying the costume for long moments without touching it. These 2 spring locks at the neck aren't holding anything back, she said at last. He just rigged them to snap and pierce your throat if you try to move. I have to undo those first, and then we can open the back of the costume and get you out. But you can't move, Carlton. Seriously. Yeah, serial killer man explained the not moving to me, he said.
I love
Charlie
Carlton's
nodded and went back to
sarcasm.
looking at the costume, trying to devise an approach. Do you know who I'm wearing? Carlton asked, almost casually. What? The costume. Do you know what character it was supposed to be? Charlie studied it, then looked around until she saw the matching head. No, she said. Not everything he built made it to the stage. Her fingers suddenly stopped working. Carlton? Charlie carefully surveyed the array of costumes and parts that lined the walls in varying stages of completion. Carlton, she repeated. Is he in here? With a new sense of dread, Carlton struggled to get a look behind him without moving.
I don't know, I can't find where she
I don't
first says
know,
it, but it does say
he
it
whispered.
right there.
I don't think so, but I've been kind of in and out.
Same place I showed you before.
Okay, stop talking. I'll try to work fast, Charlie said. She had the mechanism figured out, or at least she thought she did.
Jason.
Not too fast, Carlton reminded her. Carefully,
They came from the lunchbox that I got from work.
She reached into the costume's neck and took hold of the first spring lock, maneuvering it until her fingers were wedged between the lock and Carlton's neck. Careful with that artery. I've had it since I was a kid, Carlton said.
Foxy.
Charlie whispered. When Carlton spoke,
There's a lot
she
of
could
stuff
feel
about
his neck
Foxy.
move. He was
And then
not
just
going
out
to
of
set off the
nowhere,
locks
it's
by
a time
talking, she
skip, and it's
thought.
like, what do you mean
But the
it's
feeling
Michael?
of his
It's like,
tendons
what?
moving under her hands was
When did
unsettling.
Say this?
Okay, he whispered. Sorry, I talk when I'm nervous. He clamped down his jaw and bit his lips together. Charlie reached down farther into the costume's neck and found the trigger. With a stinging snap, the lock sprang against her hand, so hard that it numbed her fingers. One down, she thought as she pulled it, harmless, out of the neck of the costume. She flexed her fingers until the feeling came back into them, then crawled over to Carlton's other side and began the process again. She looked over her shoulder from time to time, making sure every costume was still in its place against the wall. His skin was warm under her touch, and even though he was not speaking, she could still feel movement, feel the life in him. She could feel his pulse against the back of her wrist as she worked, and she blinked back unexpected tears. She swallowed hard and focused on the task, trying to ignore the fact that she was touching someone who would die if she failed him. She worked open the spring lock again, taking the impact.
Could it be
on the
in
palm of
9
her
after
hand
all, before
and
the
pulling
suit actually
disabled
starts
device
talking to
free
him?
of the costume. Carlton took a deep breath in, and she startled. Carlton, don't relax. He stiffened and exhaled slowly, his eyes wide and frightened. Right, he said. Still a death trap. Stop talking, Charlie pleaded again. She knew exactly how much danger he was still in, and she could not bear to hear him speak now if he was about to die. Okay, she said. Almost there. She crawled around behind him, where a series of 10 leather and metal fasteners held the back of the costume together. She considered it for a moment. She needed to keep the costume still, exactly as it was, until the last moment.
Okay, let's see.
She sat down behind him and bent her knees, positioning herself so that she could hold the costume in place with her legs as she opened it. I didn't know you cared, Carlton muttered as though attempting to put a joke together, but too tired and too scared to finish it. Charlie didn't
Lower
answer.
right lock.
One by one, she worked the fasteners free. The leather was stiff, the metal tightly fitted, and each one fought back as she worked, clinging together. When she was halfway up the back of the costume, she felt its weight begin to shift. She gripped it tighter with her
Voices,
knees,
purple.
holding it together. Finally, she undid the last one at the nape of his neck. She took a deep breath. This was it. Okay, Carlton, she said. We're almost done. I'm going to open this and throw it forward. When I do, you pull out of it as fast as you can, okay? 1, 2, 3. She yanked the costume open and thrust it away with all her strength, and Carlton jerked back from it, toppling roughly into her. Charlie felt a sharp, quick pain on the back of her hand as she pulled free, but the costume skittered halfway across the room, leaving them clear. A series of snaps sounded, making a noise like fireworks, and they both cried out, leaping back and banging into a heavy metal shelf. Together, they watched as the empty costume writhed and twisted across the floor, the animatronic parts snapping violently into place. When it came to a stop, Charlie stared, fixated. The thing was just a torso, just an object. Beside her, Carlton let out a low, pained groan, then turned and vomited onto the floor beside him, heaving and retching like he would be turned inside out. Charlie watched, unsure what to do. She put a hand on his shoulder and kept it there as he finished, wiped his mouth, and sat gasping for breath. Are you okay? She said, the words sounding small and ridiculous.
Okay, until something caught his eye.
Carlton
It was
nodded
only
wearily,
one of the
then
costumes.
winced. Yeah, I'm fine, he said.
No, that doesn't
Sorry
mention
about the
who
floor.
who the
I
costume
guess
is.
it's
Though.
your floor, kind of. You might have a concussion, Charlie said, alarmed, but he shook his head, moving more slowly this time. No, I don't think so, he said. My head hurts like
Crept down
somebody
the
hit it
hall.
really hard, and I feel sick from being stuck in this room and pondering my death for hours.
See, after...
But I think I'm okay. My mind is okay.
After startled a
Okay,
moment,
Charlie said doubtfully.
after a...
Then something he had said finally registered. Carlton, you said serial killer man explained for you not to move. You saw who did this to you? Carlton got to his knees carefully, then stood, bracing himself on a nearby box. He looked at Charlie. I was trapped in that thing for hours. I'm all tingly. He shook out his foot as if to make the point. Did you see who it was? Charlie repeated. Dave, the guard, Carlton said. He sounded almost surprised that she did not know. Charlie nodded. She had known already. What did he tell you? Not much, Carlton said.
It swings in, she said.
His eyes opened suddenly, as if he had just remembered something of grave importance.
Okay, wait.
He looked away from Charlie and slowly dropped to his knees. What is it? Charlie whispered. Do you want to hear? He said. He seemed suddenly calm for someone who had so narrowly escaped death. What is it? She demanded. He glanced nervously at her for a moment, then took a deep breath, his face draining to white. Charlie, the kids, all those years ago. Charlie snapped to attention. What? All of them. Michael and the others. They were taken from the dining room when no one was looking, and they were brought here. Carlton suddenly recoiled and moved toward the doorway, watching the walls as though they were crawling with invisible creatures. He, Dave, the guard, he brought them here. Carlton rubbed his arms like he was suddenly cold and squinted in pain. He put them into suits, Charlie, he said, his face twisting in sorrow or disgust. Charlie. He stopped abruptly, a faraway look in his eyes. They are still here. How do you know that? Charlie said in such a soft whisper that she was almost inaudible. Carlton motioned toward the far corner of the room. Charlie looked. A yellow Freddy costume was propped against the wall. The costume all fitted together, as if he were about to walk on stage for a show. That's the one. That's the bear I remember from the other restaurant. Charlie clasped her hand over her mouth. Other restaurant? Carlton looked puzzled. I don't understand. Charlie's gaze was still fixed on the yellow costume. Carlton, I don't understand. Her tone was urgent. Michael. Charlie stared at him. Michael? What do you mean? She said in a level voice. I know how it sounds, he said, and then his voice dropped to a whisper. Charlie, I think it's Michael in that suit. I still can't get this thing out. John sighed in frustration and rubbed his hand.
Did you hear? Dude? Or did you fall asleep? Did you hear?
Oh, no, I didn't. I got lost in my own
cold
thoughts.
And those years ago. He looked away from Charlie as if to make the point. Okay, Charlie said doubtfully. Then something he had said finally registered. Carlton, you said serial killer man eyes that she did not know. Charlie nodded. She demanded. He glanced nervously at her for a moment, then took a deep breath, his face drained.
Read along, but it's around here.
Charlie, the kids, all those years ago. Charlie snapped to attention. What? All of them. Michael and the others. They were taken from the dining room when no one was looking, and they were brought here. Carlton suddenly recoiled and moved toward the doorway, watching the walls as though they were crawling with invisible creatures. He, Dave, the guard, he brought them here. Carlton rubbed his arms like he was suddenly cold and squinted in pain. He put them into suits, Charlie, he said, his face twisting in sorrow or disgust.
You still awake?
Charlie. He stopped abruptly, a faraway look in his eyes.
Oh.
They are still here. How do you know that? Charlie said in such a soft whisper that she was almost inaudible. Carlton motioned toward the far corner of the room. Charlie looked. A yellow Freddy costume was propped against the wall.
A yellow Freddy
The
costume was
costume
propped
all
up.
fitted together, as if he were about to walk on stage for a show. That's the one. That's the bear I remember from the other restaurant. Charlie clasped her hand over her mouth. Other restaurant? Carlton looked puzzled. I don't understand. Charlie's gaze was still fixed on the yellow costume. Carlton, I don't understand. Her tone was urgent. Michael. Charlie stared at him. Michael? What do you mean? She said in a level voice. I know how it sounds, he said, and then his voice dropped to a whisper. Charlie, I think it's Michael in that suit.
And remember, they were looking at the Golden Freddy suit at the time when he said that. So yeah, I'm thinking that if that lone grave on the top of the hill is Charlotte or Charlie, then that grave that we can't see is the ghost of Golden Freddy, or Yellow Freddy as they mention in the book. And if so, the book mentions that it's Michael in that suit, or at least that the character Carlton thinks it's Michael in the suit. So Matt Pat, if you happen to be watching this video, I hope that's the answer you're looking for. You can read the book again, or try to come up with an explanation on why that would work or not. And you can put it in your next video next week. I'm headed for bed, so I'm gonna sign out and have fun, everyone. Bye.